So then as we move towards the actual product that you guys have done, why don't you briefly explain what atmospheric water generation is for people who are maybe unfamiliar with that term and exactly the process? And then we can go a little bit deeper into like why you decided to focus on industrial rather than potentially like residential applications.
Yeah. So as mentioned, I fully believe that fresh, healthy water is the world's greatest challenge. Depending upon what study you read, globally, there's perhaps 2.5 billion people currently living in some kind of water stress that's either made up of water scarcity or water contamination. And that number is projected to increase to more than 5 billion people by 2050. It's a train wreck coming, and there's no silver bullet solution, but atmospheric water generation can play a part and can help quite extensively. Atmospheric water generation is different than any and all other water solutions because atmospheric water generation's resource is the air, and all other water solutions resource requires an existing body of water that might be get desalinated, reverse osmosis, distillation, something like that. In our case, we don't need an existing body of water because our resource is the air, and air is pretty much everywhere. And therefore, we can make projects pretty much anywhere, in particular at the location nearby or where the water is needed. So it's really a game changing solution, a little bit like how solar energy kind of changed the game of energy.
Fantastic. Is there any limitations? I have been introduced to the residential side. You're on a much larger scale, and we'll get to that conversation. But is there any limitations in where these facilities pulling moisture out of the air? Is there limitations around geographical where it's just like too dry? Is that something that is a concern for you?
Absolutely. There is limitations. So atmospheric water generation, kind of like solar energy or wind energy, is renewable water. And the key resource to make the water is humidity in the air. There's other elements, but that's the key resource. So essentially, the higher the humidity, the more water can be generated. The business itself is really kind of a site specific, mission critical real estate type deal. So we need to go to locations that essentially have high humidity and water challenges. Now, interestingly, perhaps the best locations to make these projects are on islands because also pretty much all islands are water stressed. But we can get more into detail on where these systems work the best.
Perfect. So let's dive into a little bit before we get into the nitty gritty. Let's talk about H2O. I mean, your company, Sky H2O. So what's the size of it? Where are you guys currently at in your scaling? Let the audience and definitely some of our executives kind of understand the size of the project that you're involved.
Yeah. So, firstly, we look at ourselves as a purposeful business. We like to say we're a triple bottom line business: people, planet, and profit. What we're doing differently, we believe, than anyone else is our focus is on making AWG projects. So we have from the ground up invented, created our own AWG technology. We got help from some very famous professors and scientists, mostly from UC Berkeley. So we have a lot of IP, which allowed us to create the world's greatest, largest industrial grade AWG systems. We have a flagship unit we call the AWG Maximus that's designed or rated to generate more than 3,000 gallons of fresh, healthy water per day. But in particular, that machine is designed to go into projects. So most of the projects that we work on are generating somehow something between, on the low end, 5,000, and on the upper end, as much as 100,000 gallons of fresh water a day. And that's very different than really everybody else. There's at least 10 or more other AWG companies, but the way we see them, they're really focused on the product and making smaller applications, maybe for your home or small commercial, where we're scaling, making much larger projects.